Call the meeting to order. This is the Monroe Planning Commission regular meeting from Monday, August 12th, 2024. It is 7 p.m. And I'll ask Hannah to take roll.
Right. Commissioners present and establishing a quorum. Commissioners Blair, Bull, Dawkins, Lockhart, and Petrino. Commissioner Lowe is excused this week.
Thanks, Hannah. Move into the public comment section. This is the time for people to speak to the Planning Commission in person on issues related to the city of Monroe, except those issues subject to public hearing. When invited to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and association with the city or area of residence. Yeah. Thanks, Davis. Move on to approval of minutes. We have minutes from our immediately prior meeting, July 22nd. Any edits?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 22nd meeting.
Thanks, Brandy. Open for a second. Kelsey. Thanks, Kelsey. Commissioners in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. And it's approved. We have 3 items of new business. We'll start. Item 5.1, draft utility system plans update, drinking water, sanitary sewer, stormwater with Jordan Ottow. Say that right?
Yep.
Ottow?
And John Landy.
Hey, John. Good evening. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for having us tonight. Yep, my name's Jordan Ottow. Work in Public Works. I'm one of the operations managers. I oversee our stormwater division. And I'm joined with the other operations manager in Public Works, John Landy, and he oversees our sanitary sewer and drinking water divisions. Next slide. So the purpose of this presentation tonight is just to give a high level overview of the 3 plans. And for the Planning Commission to comment if they wish. We're asking for public comment by August 19th. It's also important to remember that we did include Imagine Monroe in the development of these plans. And then lastly, of note that this is just the first review of the Monroe Utility System Plan, which will be added to Chapter 8 of the 2044 Comprehensive Plan. And once approved, the summary will be included in the capital facilities chapter. Various regulatory agencies require the city to develop utility plans. So our drinking water plan is administered by the Washington State Department of Health, and our sanitary sewer plan and stormwater plans are administered by the Washington State Department of Ecology. The sanitary sewer and stormwater plans operate under separate permits, although they are both administered by DOE. Okay, so the purpose of the plans is what do we accomplish with our plan? So we look at a holistic assessment of the Monroe utilities, and what's included in that is number 1 is an evaluation of existing system functions. So we're looking at current capacity, age of our infrastructure, staffing levels, and regulatory criteria. We're also developing capital and operating plans for the next 10 to 20 years and to meet growth targets to ensure service delivery through 2044. And then lastly is a financial evaluation where we're assessing connection fees, staffing rates, current rates, staffing costs, and identify future needs to ensure system reliability. And I'm going to let John give an overview of the sanitary sewer.
Yeah, good evening, Commission. The sanitary sewer, again, that's primarily the conveyance system, our pipes and pump stations that convey our wastewater to the wastewater treatment plant. Was looked at our system in its entirety. A complete system model was done looking at our current infrastructure as well as what our projected growth in areas and looking for capacity concerns. The system updated our 6-year capital facilities plan and extended that out also to the 20-year time frame. The findings, as was consistent with the last utility system plan update, is really limited, but we do have some deficiencies with obsolescence in our collection system, specifically just old, outdated concrete conveyance pipes that we're looking to replace. Our capital projects are driven, as I said, with obsolescence rather than with capacity. It also looked at our regulatory compliance and our current staffing levels. Next slide. The wastewater treatment plant is an important part of our sewer system. It wasn't looked in as much detail, but the capacity and our compliance was confirmed in this plan. Most of that work, the detailed work with the wastewater treatment plant, was achieved in an engineering report that was completed in 2020. Next slide. The Short Columbia, this is an example of one of the projects that we'll be looking at. This project now is currently in design, is anticipated for construction in 2025. This is outdated sewer lines around the Short Columbia area. We have sewer lines here again, aged concrete pipe that is fragile and decay, and it needs a replacement. And so anyway, this is an example of the projects that we're looking at in the sewer collection system. As I mentioned, the 6-year capital facilities plan here is the proposed plan itself. The projects listed on the left and the year of design and construction for those projects. And over the next 6 years through 2030, a total of $23 million in construction projects for the sewer system.
Okay. And for our stormwater plan, our plan focus kind of follows the same. Just looking at future projects and cost estimating, what are our system operational requirements, and making sure that we're in compliance with the NPDES permit, and we're building towards that and maintaining, and that we established 24 projects for CIP. While we're also looking at updated operations and maintenance program, and same sewer, assessing our staffing, continued regulatory compliance, just making sure we have people that are certified and qualified, competent to operate our system. Next. CIP overview, we identified 24 total projects, ensuring that they're maintaining NPDES compliance, and they're looking at improving water quality, reducing flooding, eliminating barriers to maintenance. Sometimes we have ditches that need to be cleaned or ponds that are full of vegetation and stuff. And so just making sure we're doing a good job maintaining that.
Can you explain to them what that NPDES?
Yeah, it's a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. So like I was saying at the beginning, stormwater is under the municipal stormwater permit, and sewer is under its own. But for stormwater, we get a new permit about every 4 years typically, and it continues regulations. It's pretty extensive. We're just starting a new permit this month. So it has anything to do with maintaining our current system to public outreach and education. But it's a guide basically for us to make sure that we're maintaining our system and getting our surface waters out into where they need to go properly.
And I would just say NPDES, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, was based off the 1976 EPA's Clean Water Act. It was primarily driven with wastewater facilities, but only in the last decade has it been a part with a storm system.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so here is a project for stormwater. This is in the industrial park. We picked this project for the slide because it gives a good overview of several things that we're talking about in the draft plan. So some of the things this project would be addressing is fixing existing drainage facilities, reducing the flooding or ponding that's occurring in this area, always working to improve water quality, and being that this is an industrial park or anywhere, we're always looking to make sure that we have pedestrian access throughout the project. Slide, please. So this is our table for stormwater. This is our 6-year capital facilities plan. It lists our projects for the next 6 years. I think it's just important to note that many of these projects are looking to not only maintain for our community, but also to get clean water. We have water that's surface water and it's going to Lake Tide, it's going to French Creek, it's going to Woods Creek, Skycomish River, and we have stewardship responsibility to make sure that those waters are infiltrating clean and get into other transportation waterways.
Good. And one thing we didn't mention as we get to the home stretch here, if there's any questions, please feel free to chime in. Happy to answer those. The water system, again, similar to the sewer system, we looked at a hydraulic model comparing and looking at our existing infrastructure, looking at future requirements, our flow, demand, pressure, and also incorporating the capital projects that were recommended and instituted since the 2015 water system plan was last done. The CIP projects that were found, identified, again, not much concern over our capacity. It's really over infrastructure obsolescence. We have a great deal of asbestos cement pipe still in our downtown area, 4 and 6 inch pipe that is outdated. It is our most susceptible type of infrastructure to breaks. But it's also below what our current city standard is for water lines of 8 inches. So there's a capacity issue with it, but it's mostly obsolescence is driving the capital projects that are identified in the draft plan. And just like the other utilities, we looked at current staffing levels and any additional regulatory compliance, current and forthcoming. Slide down. This water project is one that was identified. It is a replacement of a water main from the Trombley Hill area to what we call the fairgrounds. It's a main transmission main. It's a 16 inch. Currently, it is a cast iron pipe. And at the age of this pipe, the size of the pipe and the pressure, it is recommended that it be replaced with a ductile iron pipe, not in size, but in strength. Again, this is a obsolescence issue that, but another project, and I believe it is estimated at $1.5 million. As we did with all the other utilities, 6-year capital plan identifies the projects on the left, and then the years that those would be instituted, either in design and or construction. Water side over the next 6 years totaling $28 million. So in conclusion, again, this was just to complete a high level review of the 3 utility plans, albeit at a pretty high level. Any questions you may have or comments are due within the next week. Kate, is there a method for those comments or questions?
They sent it to me. This is they're getting very used to this. It's the standard process.
Oh, okay, we're not used to it, but it's a process for that.
I know Kelsey submitted some questions today. I don't know if we can.
I know, it was on like 7 minutes ago, so I feel like it wasn't very much time.
Okay.
But I was wondering about the asbestos pipe, because I didn't see those on like the improvement.
For the asbestos pipe,
Yeah, like I didn't see any line item for that. Is that
if we can go back to the water CIP plan.
like a certain maybe road?
Sometimes they're not identified as AC main replacement. We may just have a,
And then also I didn't see like the Sam's, there was some improvements on Sam's where now there's pooling because the manhole or the stormwater goes into the middle of the street, and there was said that there was a deficiency there. That's a brand new project, but then it wasn't
on the storm plan.
yeah. Or no, yeah, on the stormwater plan.
Okay, I'll just go back to your question on the AC line replacement for the water. They may not necessarily say AC line replacement, but for example,
Some of them do.
Yeah.
some of them do identify that, but Wilson Lane, South Half Lane, Circle Drive to Sumac, those are all AC line replacement
Okay, that's what I
projects.
kind of
They're
thought.
not titled as AC line replacements. The only one I can think of off the top of my head that is not an AC line replacement is that last project I shown. That was a replacement of a cast iron pipe.
Yeah.
with a high degree of certainty, I believe that all of the other water projects listed on here are AC line replacements.
And then I had another question about, if that's okay, for the stormwater on the hierarchy of projects, there's like, do we prioritize doing the biofiltration swalls or like anything that is more natural that we don't have to maintain, or like that the nature is kind of filtrating first?
Yeah.
Because it seemed like there was a lot more pipes than kind of those, are we moving towards more natural? I'm seeing that a lot in Seattle where stormwater is going into really pretty, yeah, what do they call them?
Rain gardens.
Rain gardens, yeah, and they look nice and they feel good, and then they're also like helping
Yeah.
before you get to the river.
Yeah, I would say that it's probably project by project and based on where it is, but I think that we are trying to do that as much as we can. I know we have some up by the high school, where the water comes into Lord's Lake is also a swale. And so I know we have them. And I think that's the first thing that we want to look at and try to do it naturally if we can. Sometimes there's a maintenance issue where it's just tough. But I would say that that's definitely always considered.
It seemed
I
like
don't
there was
know if it's like,
six.
yeah, I don't know if there's like a hierarchy of it or not. I guess I could look more into it
Mhm.
and see. But I don't know if it's always like, let's do this first, no matter what, if we can. I'm not really sure. I'd have to probably get you a better answer to talk to design and construction.
Cause it seems like those ones are the most efficient, like for the long term. Because you don't have to like replace pipes and it's doing it for us. And we're already having a problem with like the watershed being like polluted from development like up in the Woods Creek area and stuff coming down. So I don't know. It seems like you guys are doing a pretty good job, but if that could be like the highest priority, big turn to where there's less maintenance long term.
Okay.
We could do that.
My suspicion is some of it is also cost driven. If you are familiar with Bothell, they daylighted a stormwater drain, and the cost of that project was the same cost to breach all of the dikes adjacent to Marysville. It's like multi-million-dollar project for like 4-block stretch.
What's daylighted.
It was a stormwater pipe
Uh-huh.
that is now a stream. And so cost is a part of these projects. So it's age, it's location, it's a variety of things. But we can always put a policy in there to, look at it as one of the options. I just want to be very cognizant. I know that was an extremely expensive project. Super beautiful, but very expensive.
And then, but then like replacing things in 15 or 30 years.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
that's the exchange. What we're trying to do is like that. We're thinking about. But that's probably.
Yeah, I think, what I'm hearing you say is that we'd like to see in like how we've been seeing some of the other plans, like prioritize an environmental aspect when they're thinking of redoing parks and things like that, using native stuff and just making sure that that's on that checklist. So if it can be done, it could get done in the beginning of the project and not a retrofit. I wanted to ask something else that Kelsey had mentioned. What happens when there is a street, like let's say there's a project that gets done and then it somehow now is pooling water in the wrong spot or whatever? Is that like, does it show back up to get it fixed? Or is that something that you can work out with the contractor and they're gonna fix it? Cause that's like always such a huge disappointment when we're like, oh yeah, we got this road fixed. And then there's some other issue with it.
I was just gonna say, if the 2-year maintenance bond is up and it's handed over to the city, I believe typically that's on us now. We can't go back to the contractor. And it does happen sometimes, like I know there was a pool around, I think it was Dickinson or St. Sam Street. And that's gonna be up to the city, either have that listed as a project or our O&M guys are gonna try to go isolate that situation and fix it ourselves.
If it's immediately after the completion of a project, like Jordan was saying, there's a bond period, either it's a year or 2 year, a maintenance bond that the project is required to, maintain its reliance. And so In the event that it's after a project, then it would be on the city's responsibility. In the event that it's close enough to the completion of a project, then the contractor could.
And you guys most likely see them, but for citizens or us, if we see one of those, do the Monroe listens or something and say, hey, this
Absolutely.
project just got finished, I have
Yeah.
concerns, can you come check it out?
Yeah, we have a person that's 100% dedicated to Monroe listens, and they are constantly answering those emails all the
Passing
time.
on.
So sometimes we don't see stuff like that. If you guys are, you live on that street or that's just, somewhere you drive by every day, that's how we find out about it.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
So I had some other questions. So we've been hearing lately a lot from the transportation and then the trails stuff. And I think it was the transpo consultant that was saying basically to get road and sidewalk repairs or enhancements, it's usually as a secondary to a stormwater and sewer project, because that's usually when they pull up the streets. And then when it goes back in, that's a chance to see some of these new ideas that they have laid out for the trails and stuff. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how is that all gonna be integrated? So, are you guys gonna know what the ideas were for the trails and the, like, the transportation plans and then try to work them all in on a project? You guys all meet when you're gonna have a street project and go over what you could all do?
Typically, on the utility side, we don't really consider the trails or the streets when we're considering managing or trying to resolve a capital project with the utility. What we do try to do, however, is if a utility needs work on a certain section of the street, we look at all the utilities. We don't tear up a road just for one utility and then years down the road have to tear it up for another. So we try to incorporate all the work under the pavement at one time and then put new pavement on top of it. It doesn't mean as utility managers that we consider road conditions or trails. Sometimes they coordinate, sometimes they don't, but as utility managers and then for the utilities, we look at the utilities and try to incorporate all utilities in a project under the road, but not necessarily select them based on road conditions or if a trail or something might be appropriate.
Yeah, not select them, but just as part of the planning, because the example would be on West Columbia. One of the things that the trail consultant was showing us is that having a sidewalk on both sides and that becoming like a shared use road where people can bike and walk and everything on it. So if that's gonna happen in 2025, the other stuff should be approved by then, right, by city council? And how would we ensure that there's a trigger that they're looking at improvements like that? Because Dickinson is another example. Right now, they're not gonna be able to do any of the enhancements that were suggested by the trails and sidewalks and stuff because it's done in 2024 before all the other things are approved. But I would hate to miss opportunities for us to implement those cool ideas from the trails plan. Trombley, where they were talking about behind Robin Hood, that was also on their map for having a walking, like nature-like trail too. How could we do that? Yeah,
First, the council, excuse me, the council has to adopt all these lovely plans. And I'm trying to think historically, way back in 2000s, the downtown plan was it was a full utility project, but I think that wound up getting incorporated with the right-of-way improvement with the road. So it's just can't make guarantees, but you've got people talking all the time. But it starts with the council approving projects and it also starts with them approving budgets. So I guess one thing that we could work on internally is just more forward thinking on the projects.
Or like a home for all of them that are, in alphabetical order, so they're, just one spreadsheet. Right, is there something like that where everybody's?
Yeah,
all
there's
utilities and-
there is a system like, the new developments going in and these plans come in. They go to our design and construction group and they get them and they send them out to like utilities and we'll look at them and we'll have people that look at them. But our focus is looking at the storm, sewer and water. But there are other people reviewing those plans and, if somebody's talking more about trails and stuff like that, and different pedestrian accesses, that's when they would be looking at it and putting their own comments if the developer didn't have that in.
I mean, I know other cities do it. we're pretty smart people here, so it doesn't seem like it'd be too hard to maybe on an annual basis at the beginning of the year, or when you're looking at the capital improvement plans. Yeah, I'll see what other cities have, just to see if there's a better way to coordinate that.
What I think, Kelsey, your comment was, having all our capital projects on one list instead of separating them by utility.
Just, yeah, or maybe there's some of that in our big plan at the very end, like, this is just everything that's gonna happen in Monroe, how exciting.
Yeah, instead of broken down by utility or by a street fund, these are broken down by fund, right? How the
Okay.
projects are being financed,
Mhm.
right? But many of the projects may have a storm and a sewer component to it, and even street dollars might be tied to it as well.
So they already work together that way, right? Like, because who's paying for what?
Yes, these are broken down on how the projects are funded,
Mhm.
but the planning of the project brings all the public works, all the divisions of the city together, departments of the city together, when a project is looked at, especially if it's on the level of the project, but all the departments are brought together when projects are considered,
Including parks.
including parks.
Okay.
Yeah, if appropriate,
Or-
yeah, if appropriate, yeah.
Because that's your concern, right? That's, well, at least Brandon's concerned, that parks always has to see the table so they can talk about the trails plan, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just only trails, but it's like the connectivity that we've been hearing so much that people want, and it's really cool what we're gonna be able to get someday, but these little projects is how we get there, and if we're not doing the enhancements for sidewalks the way that it's gonna match up with I mean, it was called the trails plan, but it's also just sidewalks and pedestrian stuff, so, yeah, I'm just worried that we're gonna miss opportunities to start implementing that plan, because they have, budgets on their stuff too. So it's not like asking you guys to add the sidewalks I understand it's utilities, but that if we're breaking ground to redo utilities, we might as well do the enhancement that the people are gonna actually get to benefit, which is that connectivity and walkability through neighborhoods, so. And I'm not talking about like new neighborhoods, like these downtown, the places where we're redoing, yeah.
Again, we're pretty smart people. We can
Yeah.
probably figure it out. The challenge, I think, that I really want to acknowledge is that water, sewer and storm, or water and sewer are franchised. They have different payment. Anything transportation is general fund, so it's.
And same with trails and parks.
Exactly. So it's, it could be you're giving up something else to get your sidewalk coordinated with a water plan, water replacement plan. So, there are challenges, but I also think that there might be a better way for us to, look out a little bit more. I will be working with these two and Jake to see if there's something we can figure out.
Thank you for listening.
Before I get to my questions, anyone online have questions? Thanks. So Kate always tells us, since I have a couple program managers here, Kate always tells us that we have plenty of capacity
For which utility?
Sewer.
For sewer,
for sewer.
at the treatment plant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that comes up a lot. We have really modest, when I'm looking at our growth goals, the projections, they're really modest. So I don't doubt that. You've got built-in septic to sewer conversion, eventually completely phasing out all of, in your service area, all of the septic, right?
We do have quite a bit of septic in our service area, in our city limits, based on development and what those landowners, property owners decide. Though they could be hooked up to sewer if sewer was made available to them. In terms of the question with the wastewater treatment plant, we do have current capacity. Depending on the level of growth, there are some triggers that will require some facility upgrades on the liquid stream side, the flow, if you will, capacity. We have plans scheduled when those triggers are hit. So we don't have capacity for all the growth that is identified in this draft plan, but we have plans for that growth with upgrades at the facility. Okay. Yeah, we have a solid project that we're currently in design of. And then we have a liquid stream project that is ready when the hydraulic triggers are met. The engineering report of 2021 for the wastewater treatment plant identified those at about 2026, but those trends have slowed. And we see those being beyond 2030 at this time with the trends.
And she also tells us that you guys planned well ahead for any flooding issues and that you built the infrastructure above the estimated flood.
Yeah, good question, because it's right there on the park,
Yeah.
right? All of the facility at the wastewater treatment plant is built above the 100-foot flood.
And so to water capacity, so we're getting our water from City of Everett.
City of Everett, we have 3 taps off the transmission, what's the, is it, what,
The
Everett line?
distribution, or the 5 line?
The 5 line.
So does it go from Spada Lake to the City of Everett and back to us, or you're tapped up?
We're tapped from the treatment facility at Champlain, Spada, down to Everett. We're tapped off line 5.
Okay. And your service area is pretty big. It's bigger than,
It's beyond city limits.
yes, bigger than I kind of remember.
Yeah.
So I used to live halfway to Sultan, and we were on Highland. Do you guys ever like foresee having some of the other private water districts incorporated into your?
No,
No.
that is unlikely.
Okay.
That is-
All right.
Do you have one more question? So with the annexing of these other, neighborhoods, it seems like the county has less strict stuff on, does the county have less strict stormwater plans than our town? How do you, because we're annexing in these developments that are gonna be happening that I think I always hear it's easier to, build in the county, and then we're gonna be inheriting like new development. Is there a way that, do you know if they're less strict about how they run their things? Because already we're seeing more pollution in the areas that are having, or according to the document, then like Woods Lake was having, issues of, Woods Creek, runoff just being polluted into our like streams and things. So how, are we working with the county on that, on these forward thinking on it? How can we prevent that from happening while these new developments are coming,
Yeah,
if they're not in our
I don't
jurisdiction?
know if they're more or less strict. It's just two different, the entities are so different. The county's so big. And it probably comes down to staffing. Again, stormwater requirements are just gaining traction so fast. And so everybody's like trying to hire stormwater people to make sure we're maintaining compliance and fulfilling all the requirements. The county recently, I believe, a lot of like the storm systems and developments that are in the county, and in the city at one point in time, it's kind of gone back and forth, where the HOA is responsible for all their stormwater, and it goes into a pond, and they're supposed to maintain that pond. Well, it gets handed over to the HOA and nobody does anything about it. Everybody moves away and it's new people coming in, and it's just like, nobody's like regulating it. I believe that what the county did, and it was not long ago, is I believe they went to all of the HOAs and took the ponds back. And so now that they have control and they're gonna maintain the ponds, it's just because they were just getting left, and it's just, or the HOAs don't have the money to maintain it because it's not cheap. The city, we maintain most of our ponds, but there was a time period where the HOA, where the city was leaving the ponds to the HOAs. And so there are some of them in the city that we don't maintain yet, but I believe that the city is moving towards the same thing as the county, where it's like, if we just have the ponds, we can ensure that they're getting done, because it's a lot of work to try to get these HOAs to come up with funding and people to maintain the ponds. And once they aren't maintained for 10 years, then it's really expensive because they gotta get dredged out, there's trees in them, the culverts are plugged. So I think having, like our organization like the city or the county maintaining those storm systems will be a lot better. And the ones that are being annexed, I believe right now, the HOAs are still maintaining the ones in the woodlands. But we're working with them to be taking those over.
Yeah, and it's like concerning just because the backpedaling of it, like you said, it's like just sounds more expensive. So, and worse for everything. So I don't know how we can figure out how to get those sooner or something.
And the HOAs, they want us to take
Yeah.
them. So yeah, I agree.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you being here. Thank you.
You can say if you want or you can.
Commissioners, if you come up with any questions, feel free to email them to Kate. She'll pass them along.
Here tomorrow, forget, the 19th, so it's a week from today.
Okay. Or Hannah, would you rather have the questions to distribute them?
Kate is fun. She's the boss.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
No, these are really meaty technical documents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to item 5.2, Monroe 2044 draft housing chapter, emergency shelter land use capacity analysis.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a continuation of the new requirements from the state. It's a piece there, when you saw the last draft of the housing chapter, there was a placeholder. This is one of the requirements. We have to show how we're going to accommodate emergency shelter land use capacity in the city of Monroe. This is also somewhat of a technical document, but I wanted to introduce it to you before you see it in the revised housing chapter later this, or in August, yeah, later this month. LCA, page, I'm sorry, I didn't write the page numbers out in the title, that's land use or land capacity analysis. And so Monroe, we're lucky compared to some cities. Some cities don't have hotels or zoning that would allow for emergency shelters. Monroe has, we allow hotels, so we allow this type of development. The other thing that's not included in here, and I had talked to the consultants a little bit, is the St. Vincent de Paul's safe parking. That would technically comply with this and add capacity. I know there's concerns about, is that really a good way of providing housing, but it is an option under the state. And so we have our temporary encampments chapter already adopted in the code. And so this is really just walking you through the analysis that was done by our consultants based on the land use zoning capacity, which comes through the buildable lands report with amendments, and then to the MIG proprietary model. And so at the end of the day, based on their analysis, we have and actually exceed capacity for this requirement by 2044. And you will note that the Fairground Inn and Monroe Motel were identified as possible ways of us getting there. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be for temporary, as lodging today. It's just something that might happen in the future. The other thing that is not included, I know Rachel Adams was at council, gosh, was that last meeting or 2 meetings ago? The voucher program, that's another one that that helps us meet that requirement. And so we keep track of how many vouchers are issued. So all of it together helps us meet that capacity. And are there any questions? Yeah.
I guess, so this one is where we don't have to show that you said the vouchers help us show. So is there reporting requirements on this? Because it's okay that we have this zone for, but you need to have an agency, like St. Vincent de Paul, take the next step. Somebody who is there to like get people through this process. And so is there any requirement or incentive for the city to help get one of those things off the ground?
So if you look, table 5 talks about, we do actually have identified the vouchers. It's the Volunteers of America. That is the agency that the city of Monroe currently works with the voucher program. And so it's a matter of continuing funding for it. Is that what you're asking? The city of Monroe does not do it itself. We contract with somebody else.
Yeah, so are we required to, or, and do we have to report like that we're doing it and that it's gotten more use, or just like how we have housing goals and
Yeah.
stuff, is there a goal here that? we
Yeah,
have to
that-
hit?
So the goal is actually adopted already in the countywide planning policies, and I should have marked this, sorry. Our requirement was.
Cause I do think that we have some stuff going on that's working, but it's not as robust as, I think the needs are. And so I was wondering if we are gonna need to invest in, not like money wise, but in idea wise on how to get these bigger.
Possibly. So the need identified for Monroe was 137 units. And it was identified through this process that we have the potential, doesn't mean they exist today, but we have the potential of 177, which is 40 more than were required in 40 years. The state requirements basically is covered by showing our existing inventory, and we continue have to show, excuse me, have to show how we're meeting that. So I think I've talked to this group before. In 5 years, we have to show how we're getting towards those housing targets and the employment. So my suspicion is part of the analysis will be this, that table 5.
Yeah.
We'll have to show, yep, we're still meeting this. No, we're not. The city's gonna have to look at new policies.
Well, just because our capacity shows that we're at 177 and we know the need is 137, what's not on here is how many are we doing?
Right.
So there could be only 20 people that are currently using the services, and that's the area that I think. Yeah, I'm wondering if the city has any responsibility in ensuring that those in need are getting to the capacity that we are offering.
I'm gonna make a note to myself, the presentation that Rachel did, I think she was at council for a budget request potentially, but she gave a really good presentation, with the VOA on how successful their program has been since it started, and it's only been around for a couple of months. I'll see if they're willing to come, just to kind of, allow you to hear what they're doing and what kind of successes they're having.
Thanks.
Yeah. Other questions online?
For the conditional use, is that, how long does that process take? If people are like in an emergency? Do they need to now convert things to?
So, yeah, so in order to get a conditional use, so I will also state, once you have a conditional use permit, it runs with the land unless it
Okay.
expires for more, if the use has not been maintained for, if it lapses, it's 6 months is the window. It needs to be in continuous use. If it lapses after the 6 months, then we have to go through the process. The process typically takes between, depending on how complete the application is, how quickly people get back to us, I would say between 3 and 6 months. And it does take a little bit longer with our volunteer organizations. They need a little bit more assistance in providing the information we're asking for.
Okay, so for emergency. Emergency seems a little more immediate, right? Like we need it now, so
Yeah.
how do we, I guess, we need to get these conditionally use now so that their need, if it arises, they're ready?
Yeah, and so this is a long-term plan. This is
Yeah.
not, we're not doing this today. But it is, yes, I mean, it's just like the utility presentation. We have to be thinking of the future. And as opportunity comes about and funding is around, we work either the city and or the providers that already provide these services to help them get the locations in Monroe. Seahawks game today?
Other things that would be great to know, if we do get the opportunity to have Rachel do a presentation, would be our hotels in town. How many rooms are,
Vouchers? Or-
well, vouchers, but also how many of them are rented on a more or less long-term basis to like utility contractors and road contractors, because I see, you know, when you're in town, there's a lot of utility trucks that are at the hotels. So that might, you know, kind of decrease the number of overnight rooms available if they have a contract with the telco or something.
I'm not sure she'll have that information, but I'll ask Patrick Doherty, who's our economics person, if he can track that down. Yeah, I know, that is actually a really good question. The former planning director in Linwood found that Microsoft and Google were actually paying for contract workers to reside longer term in Linwood because it was cheaper to get them there and commute them to Bellevue and Redmond and Kirkland than it was to find them housing. So that's a really good question. Actual capacity. Let's see, was there another question?
I think we'll work through that. Thank you, ladies, for your questions.
Okay, next is the draft economic development chapter. So you've already seen existing conditions. We are still working with a consultant. There are some items that we're still not exactly as I had hoped or Patrick. So again, this is an introduction. I'm looking for comments actually by next Wednesday, not next Monday. A couple extra days in the utility plan. This is again in the staff report. It walks you through the GMA requirements to the Puget Sound Regional Council's Vision 2050, the countywide planning policies, and then down to the city of Monroe. In the plan, it's identical to the rest and how it's organized. There's just kind of an introduction, how it relates to other planning documents, then it walks through existing conditions. And at the end, it has the goals and policies. EDAB has done a substantial amount of work on this, specifically on the goals and policies. They really wanted to recognize that we have different types and different areas for economic development. Downtown is different than the needs for the industrial park. And so you'll see that reflected in the goals and policies. Trying to think, there are just a couple of edits that were recently put in. And this is actually some recognition of the Snohomish County Comprehensive Plan. The county is looking at doing some UGA expansion in the Mulvey area, which is somewhat, it's a competitor for the city of Monroe. Monroe, we have very tight urban growth area boundaries. Mulvey is a little bit more wiggly right now. We are our own water sewer provider. I believe there's a district that serves it. And so our city leadership has concerns that by the county allowing expansions of the UGA, it's taking away what should be within a city's urban growth area. So you'll see that reflected as a threat. And then in the goals and policies, it was policy 5.4.4 was added to reflect those concerns. So with that, take any questions, comments. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been sending me edits. I really appreciate it. It'll make it a better document.
Kelsey?
I just want to say, it's nice to see this in this formatting, like going.
We're
from the
getting there,
other one
right?
To this one, I'm like, my mind is like, oh, I recognize this, I can sort it out. So
Yeah,
it's really, really, I miss it.
yeah,
Thank you.
it's about to get better.
Thanks.
Well, that was super quick. Although you've seen this a couple of times, so this part is not new. All right. So again, if you have any edits, please send them to me by August 21st. We can keep going.
Okay.
All right, after last week's, or the last meeting, you had the introduction, or maybe it's 2 meetings ago now, to the draft transportation plan, not the chapter, but the larger plan. And a question was asked about, the traffic volume. So was concerned that it wasn't really accurately reflecting. And so Scott was kind enough to get back to the consultants. And so the agenda bill in your packet is an explanation of how they collected the data, and that they're really talking about averages within a corridor over a certain period of time. So you are going to see more congestion in certain areas or certain times of day than you are others. The way we're now assessing, it's more of an average. And so if you had additional questions, Scott is more than happy to come back again or provide additional information. But that is really what he was what they're getting at is we're going to this corridor basis. It's now a full-time, or it's no longer an intersection, and it's no longer the PM peak hour, which used to be 3 to 6, I think was the primary hours. So does that answer the question?
I think Bob, go ahead, Bob, with your question, please.
There's 2 things that I've always am concerned about. One is, what is the actual impact in real life of development per se, traffic alterations, traffic calming? So we know we have this a methodology of either estimating based on formulas or peg counts or some sort of data. Do we ever go back after development, after revisions are made, to go back and actually see if the impact estimate is accurate? I've seen developments come in and the traffic estimates were completely wrong, and we created big messes, and that always worries me. So do we have a facility, a methodology of going back and doing a follow-up study once things are completed?
So the current, excuse me, the current transportation plan as it's drafted now is taking us more to that model where we will be actually evaluating these corridors on a regular basis. Now, to get to this specific project or development that was approved, I'm not sure we'll be able to hone in on a particular development because we're looking at corridors. So it could be multiple projects, or it could be multiple traffic calming, or a combination. But we will be tracking this now using the mega data on a regular basis to figure out how these corridors are behaving. And that will influence the project list that they introduced to you during the transportation plan to see so the projects they have identified, if it has to go up or down on the priority list, because that's a piece of the puzzle now. That's something we've done historically. So we're getting closer to what you're asking for.
So Kate, when you say
Yeah.
metadata, you are talking about
Cell phones.
cell phones rather than the little rubber
Correct.
strips that
Yeah.
did the mechanical count.
Yep. That was the intersection methodology.
So I'm guessing since this is a consulting group, that this is how they do all their data is the averages, right? So I think what Kelsey was expressing last time, and then I've been thinking about when I'm driving around town the last 2 weeks since we heard from them. Their averages that they're showing don't feel like true anytime that I'm using the roads. And so whether that be at noon or 5 PM or 9 AM, and even on this showing that, the average person, any time of the day is going less than 30 miles an hour on SR 203 Lewis Street. That just doesn't seem accurate. If you walk down that street, that doesn't seem accurate. So there's also, instead of average data where you've got the two extremes that are maybe leveling each other out, the median data where the more frequent of the number that you get is what the aggregate is instead of an average. I'm guessing that since this is the tool that they use, averaging, it must be what's the accepted data, but it doesn't feel like it's actually reflective of what we see. And I think it's because they're using an average.
Yeah, I mean,
A median.
if you're looking at, the table that's in corridor 10, data was captured over 2-month time period, May and June of 2024. To avoid influencers such as summer when schools are out, no school buses, and parent drop-offs. So they specifically were trying to avoid, the summer for this particular graphic. And then they are showing that, yes, we actually do have some problems between, 3:30 thereabouts and 5:30. But what this graph is also showing is that it's still not below what the average level of service standard is on delay. So, yes, you are probably experiencing things differently than the averages. But this is how data is collected, and this is the methodology that we've agreed to.
Yeah.
So there are going to be pinch points that a local individual might experience differently.
And is that the low, is it like, lower averages than what, than a bigger city? Or,
No, this is specific to Monroe.
no, I mean like it's saying that we can take this capacity, what's that? It's less than,
So unfortunately, my graphic cut
I
off.
can't see.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
either, so I'm like-
So green, there's a green dash line, that's level service A. That means there's no traffic ever. You have free flow. Then the gray color is B, and so you keep working down, red is F. The city of Monroe has adopted C and D, which are kind of that teal and orange color. So those are our accepted today level of service standards. So we're not even there on this particular corridor, which is SR 203. And so all of the standards and the data analysis are for Monroe specific. We're not comparing ourselves to anybody else. The red, level A, B, and C is based on minutes of delay to get through a particular corridor. So that standard is kind of like a national standard, but everything has been drilled down for the city of Monroe specifically.
And so how is it not dipping into the red at all on this other graph if it's fully red on?
I think that one's Highway 2, and that one's 203.
Yeah,
I just am concerned about like the saying that without doing anything at all to Lewis Street or to any of these, that these are gonna be a green light in 2044. Like, how is that? These are gonna continue to stay.
so I thought the project list had projects.
Yeah, it said that Lewis was an A grade and it will still be that in 2044. We don't even need to worry about that traffic. It's perfect. There's no problem.
Yeah, the only projects I saw were like, for safety, pedestrian safety on like the corners and stuff.
Okay, I'll double check that.
And that's why I was like, what, can we not have any, and I mean, what can we do? We can't like put a roundabout there. we can't widen those roads. I don't know what we can really do there, but it just doesn't seem true that there's no problem on any of our roads, especially Highway 2. Well, Highway 2's like a
Yeah.
we gotta run there, so,
Start calling your representatives.
um. It just worries me that this is the, information that any grants or anything will go off of. And it say, well, you guys don't have a problem. When it's not just like an inconvenience to our neighborhood, it's like a future thing that it's already a problem. And you're saying in 35 years, it's not gonna be a problem.
Okay. Got it, especially because, relating back, since we're doing, we're hearing everything every week. The economic stuff, they were showing that the truck routes that go through 203 and Highway 2. And for economic wise, there's really no other choice for them, but if they had another choice, they would go a different way. Because, and we're trying to get people flowing through for economic vitality as well, so, yeah, I know that they made note on one of the last presentations we had about how it's an official truck route and for shipping and stuff like that, and so. Yeah, it just feels like there's something not quite working in that area, and I agree with what Kelsey's saying, that if this is all showing it's fine, then when we do email our Congress people and stuff, they're gonna say, oh, you're gonna rate it out of B, you guys just don't seem to like waiting in traffic, and it's like. No, our city is literally in gridlock, daily, so. I will follow up and get clarification.
Melanie,
From my understanding, the city does budget to have people that are advocating for some of this stuff, like 522, right? We have people that go to Olympia outside. Also, obviously, city council members will go down there, but does the city have people who go to Olympia to kind of advocate for that stuff?
The city, I need to double check this, but I'm 99% sure we have a lobbyist that specifically, well, we have a lobbyist, but one of their biggest projects that they're working on is to complete SR 522.
Yeah, and that was to follow up with that, and my brain was not properly braining to say lobbyist. That was the word I was looking for. And so to add to that, obviously 522 is a big project. It's been a discussion point for a long time. It's very important to the constituents here in Monroe and surrounding areas, but also to that effect, is there either whether it needs to be another person or to put maybe some equal time and effort into lobbying for the overpass for Highway 2, because I know that's another piece that might help with some of those projections for Highway 2 in particular. Obviously, we could start doing that for 203 too, and there's plenty of things we could argue could use advocating and lobbying for, but I feel like the overpass, I mean, there's even WAS.land that has been kind of tentatively earmarked for it. But it's just a matter of funding and prioritizing the project. So all that long-winded statement to say, is there a way to add to the lobbyist efforts in Olympia to maybe help in those regards?
I will talk to Deborah Knight, our city administrator. I am completely not part of that project on how the city sets priorities. I know the council does have a process and they do identify specific projects. Deborah will be coming to the planning commission in a couple meetings, so I'll see if we might be able to coordinate and have her give you kind of an overview of how that works today, because I cannot answer that question.
Kelsey's got it.
So I need to get back to
Oh, great. Oh, and I mean, then 522 is also agreeing on this, so when we lobby for that, like, not a problem. But what's the bypass?
It's the bypass, it's already zoned. It's in our zoning. So there is a designated corridor if the funding ever gets there, Highway 2 will go north of town.
But I want to be very clear on that. Those have been on the books since the 1960s. The state has changed direction on how they allocate funding. They prefer to maintain existing systems than building new. So I don't expect to see that happen before I retire.
Is it like floating or something? I mean, like, or
This-
a bridge or?
No,
It's
no,
not
the
a,
state,
it's a bypass.
Yeah.
It is land designated
yeah.
for a road system. There's just no point.
Yeah, it has been on the books since the 1960s. It's gonna be. Yeah, or just a map. So for anyone who did not know, we'll show you the bypass. We share.
So when we zoned it, we zoned the lowest possible density so that people wouldn't build houses on that corridor
So that possibly later.
possibly.
And that's,
Scoot down. Nope, other way, sorry.
and this is totally out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, no,
I feel
this
bad
is
about
a
it.
great question, and
It's
it's opportunity.
It's only 8:05.
Opportunity. No, can you just use your cursor?
Yeah.
This is the bypass. So it comes up. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna steer for a second. All right, so this is the bypass. And there was an identified interchange. Most of the property is already owned by WashDOT. There was, talk a couple years ago of trying to at least connect 522 to Chain Lake Road. My understanding is that fell apart before COVID. And then you can see the bypass comes down this path and it eventually hooks up with US 2, this funky little, shape. Oops. The shape here is also part of that designated bypass. So it's there. I'm just not optimistic that it will ever get constructed.
All those properties are owned by DOT?
Yeah,
I
all
always
of it.
wondered.
Yeah, yeah. See, education opportunity.
Everyone learned something tonight.
So, yeah, I used to have that document in my office. The Public Works probably took it. But, yeah.
Thank you.
Another question, Melanie?
Just another little piece of that, since we're on that. I know that, some discussion that happens in the community is in regards to some of the, unhoused population and where they reside. And I know that some of the challenges that have arisen with that is some of that land that's been earmarked. It doesn't belong to the city of Monroe. And so, obviously there's different layers of different topics and stuff, involved in that, but since we're on the topic, I figured I'd throw that out there too.
Yeah, actually, last year there was, an organized effort between WashDOT, the city of Monroe, police department, the fire district, and our parks department, trying to help, parties who were there. There were a couple of fires that started, so the city is very well aware of it.
Okay.
Great, yeah.
Item 6.2.
That's actually Amy.
Oh, good to see you, Amy.
Good evening, commissioners. I just came tonight. I just wanted to give a status update of the downtown code amendments that I brought forward about a month or two ago. So they went to city council and they had some of the similar comments that you had as well. And it's really those comments that were around preserving the walkability in the downtown area. And so they asked us to go back and modify the amendments and give specific requirements for conditional uses. And one of those was for them to be open during certain hours of the day. So we worked with some downtown businesses, and what we plan to bring forward to them is to add a note at the bottom of our land use table specific to conditional uses within the downtown promenade. And it's that they shall be open to the public a minimum of 5 days and totaling a minimum of 25 hours per week, except for holidays and extenuating circumstances like a remodel or something like that. Then another concern that was raised is that presently our code is not clear if an existing accessory use would be considered an existing conditional use after this change. So for example, if somebody has an accessory use right now and it's allowed as an accessory use and we're changing it to conditional, would they just already be allowed to operate as a conditional use, or do they need to go through that process? That was a concern of council, so we're just making a very small change to the conditional use section of the code that says that an existing outright permitted legal use does not become a conditional use because of which the zoning district has changed. What that means is anybody that wants to move from accessory to conditional would need to go through the same process as everybody else. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Amy, would it be legal non-conforming if it's accessory now, they wouldn't have to do anything?
So yeah, so that's what we're looking at, and if we felt that our code wasn't very clear, very strong in that area, and so we wanted to ensure that our council wanted to ensure that it wouldn't be legal non-conforming. It wouldn't be allowed to move from accessory to conditional. They can stay accessory the way they are today, but if they want to move to a primary use, they'll still need to follow the same process as everyone else and go through that conditional use permit process.
Got a question?
That's clarified.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think those are the same concerns that the planning commission had. The council said we need to address this. They didn't, the criteria for conditional use permits is pretty generic. And so by adding, as Amy was explaining, these footnotes will actually be added to the land use table in the downtown commercial zone. So it's very specific that conditional uses, and it's not all conditional uses, but ones that like, we're not going to do that for utility corridors. What was the, do you remember what the other one was?
I don't recall, but they didn't make sense to have these requirements. They weren't businesses that stayed open during the day. A utility corridor is not a business, so.
Anyway, I feel like the council's decision to remand it back to staff, it will not come back to you, but it is addressing the concerns that you had. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Monroe 2044, the comp plan. I just want to give you a couple of updates, really talking about schedule. I am hoping to have the complete draft plan in the next 3 weeks. And so I'm trying to gauge from the commission, do you want to have special meetings? Do you feel like you've seen it enough that when you get the draft, because right now the way I have it planned is that you will have you'll have 2 or 3 meetings to look at the complete draft document. I have a tentative public hearing scheduled before this body on September 23rd. You would have 2 more meetings to discuss, make changes, and prepare a recommendation to the city council. I right now have a tentative public hearing in front of city council on November 12th. That also leaves them a couple of meetings for them to deliberate, and then final action must occur on or before their very last meeting of December 10th to meet the state deadlines. The other piece that is floating around out there is the environmental impact statement process. The draft component of that is complete. We had 11 different parties provide comment. I think there were 23 or 24 total comments. That information will be included in the final environmental impact statement, which is tentatively scheduled to be issued on September 16th. The comments that were provided really didn't question the validity of the environmental impact statement. They had some specific concerns about what the city is really looking at, more of the capacity, land use capacity analysis. We had some comments about annexation, which is outside the scope of the comp plan. Trying to remember some of the other comments. But anyway, that will all be captured and available for public review around September 16th. So far, we're on track for that to be issued. So kind of gauging, you've seen all the draft elements, chapters, except for transportation. That will be a summary of the plan that you've already seen. Just from what you've seen and what you've reviewed, I'm just trying to gauge comfort level. Should I start adding in meetings? Do you think 2 or 3 of the full plan will do it?
So you're thinking squeezed in an extra meeting in first part of October somewhere?
The end of like September and October.
Okay, because the public hearing is September 12th.
Yeah, it'd be the front end, or I push the public hearing date a little bit further to October.
I mean, shouldn't we hear the public hearing and see the environmental impact comments and statements back by the city before, at some point before we have a final meeting on it? So if that stuff's not gonna be ready till the end of September, I think it wouldn't hurt to add in an extra meeting, just in case. And I mean, we can always cancel them, right? I would like to see it all together at one point, because yeah, I think we've been doing a really good job of having it all chopped up, and that's easy to absorb and review, but now that it should be a lot further along, seeing it in its entirety and having, if we have at least 2 meetings where that's the only thing on our agenda, and where we can see it in advance and then comment here and have discussion on it. I'd say just add, my thought is add at least 1 extra meeting after the public hearing.
You sure you don't want it before the public hearing?
Cause aren't we like, don't we make decisions at the public hearing
Well,
to move it forward? Or
You make
we're
a
just
recommendation.
So you're saying 3 September meetings?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got people that are dealing with schools.
School.
So can it be done? Can the 3rd Monday? Bob, do you have a thought?
Yeah, I think we need the meeting before the public hearing. Also, do we have to have a public hearing for the environmental impact report?
We already did, and
You
it
already
wasn't a
did?
public hearing, it was part of the public, it was a public meeting, we have met the state requirements.
So you
Okay, so
guys want to
extra
throw in
meeting.
a meeting on the 21st of,
Yeah, put one in.
when is it? No, it'd be the
No.
23rd of, no.
So the 20, so I think
the 15th.
what I would recommend is, I will move the public hearing date out to that first meeting in October. That way you could potentially have 3 meetings in September.
Oh, that's
We
gonna
have
be
Labor Day.
problematic. Are you guys working the 14th of October?
Hold on, what's the 14th? Is that a holiday?
People's Day.
Indigenous peoples. Do you guys work?
That's a really good question. My last city I did. God, if I do or not, I feel like we do.
So bankers don't work on that day.
Okay, so
But that
that's,
doesn't make any
that's a
difference to
holiday.
me because it matters what the city is doing.
but that's
because
a Tuesday.
I think we gave that one up.
What's a Tuesday?
I've got September 9th as a Monday, September 16th as a Monday, September 23rd as a Monday, and September 30th as a Monday.
Yes, I'm talking about a public hearing.
He's
You were
talking about
talking-
October.
You were talking about a public hearing on that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Not September, October.
Because we can schedule 3 meetings in September for planning.
Oh, wait. So if we had okay, so 9/2 is a holiday, correct? That's Labor Day?
But I think for people with kids in school, I think September meetings for planning, 16th, 23rd, and 30th are gonna be better.
Okay,
Is that? Brandon?
so
Is the 9th, does it matter?
No.
Melanie,
You've got children.
You got kids.
Ew, I'm going to have probably 3 kids in school, in elementary and preschool. I would suggest and be in favor of having meetings on the 9th, 16th, and 23rd. And if we really do want to push the thing, I mean, I'm not opposed to 4 meetings if we absolutely need it in September. So doing all 4 Mondays that other than Labor Day because of the holiday. But just in terms of like logistics and timeline, I think if we had an extra meeting on the 16th there, we could probably still have our public hearing on the 23rd and maybe be better prepared for it with that extra meeting prior to it. That's my thought process anyway. And I'm totally fine, whether it's Zoom or in person, I can make it work. So worst case, I have kids kind of in another room in the background and I deal with it, but usually it's not the case.
And Liz, you have 1 graduate, but you still have 1 in school?
Yes, I'm out of town the 16th, but I think I should be able to zoom in, so.
Okay.
That shouldn't, at least I'm hoping so.
So we're gonna pencil in meetings the 9th, the 16th, and a public on the 23rd. Kelsey, what do you have?
When do you think that will be like a full document where there's nothing that needs to be added? There's no chapters that are like floating.
I am
draft?
certainly hoping to have that finalized, the end of next week. The problem right now is the transportation chapter. I have not gotten a status update from the council. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think we're gonna withhold the check on that invoice then until they get to it.
Yeah, right.
So we would maybe get it emailed to us on or before the September 9th meeting?
Absolutely. As soon as I get it, I'm sending it and we'll make it available on the city website. You have another thought?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know that my computer was having a hard time sending you back the last document. Because it's so big. Is
Oh,
there another way? I think there's a way to send it as a link, but I don't know.
We have a file sharing system that we can use. It's called ShareFile. We can send.
can you create one and send it to Kelsey?
Okay.
Were you able to finally send it or?
I felt like that chapter was only, 400 pages. This comp plan is gonna be.
So can we
10,000?
set up a share file for the commissioners to, well, and submit things back to us?
Yeah, it'll be 2 separate links, but yeah.
Okay, so Hannah is gonna help me. We will get a file specifically set up for the planning commission to send and receive or pull up the documents.
Cool.
Liz,
Odd question, can the city receive back emails that have a share file link? Like if I send you something through share file through my company, does the city allow those to go through? Cause I know like some bankers won't accept share file because it might be malicious or something. So I didn't know if city policy, hopefully I can make your links work, but like, I'm just curious if we're cause like Dropbox, you can send a link and other things, but I didn't know if the city allows those to come through.
We prefer to use ours. So are you talking about sending back a document that has your edits on it?
Yeah.
There's gonna be a share file link that will allow you to upload documents.
Okay.
So that's just for all of your information. When we get large plans for current development, that's what we use. So we send the applicant the link and that's how they upload. So I can't imagine that being an issue for these documents. I guess I'd have another question. Is it easier to send you a Word document as opposed to a PDF? Because I know I have control over the chapters. I do not necessarily have control over the trails plan, transportation, but I could ask for that in Word.
Word's easier for me, because
Okay.
otherwise, yeah.
Okay. You like the PDF? Okay. Both are easy. Okay.
What do you prefer us doing? Like, how are you compliant?
Honestly, I've been using all of the above,
Same.
so, yeah. From to the, because Brandy usually does, yeah, she writes on the document, you send me a PDF, and then, we have not.
You can track her edits in a PDF format.
I have like, I just save it the way it is. I have like a way to annotate or like
Yeah.
highlight things. It's just on a Mac. It's really,
Okay.
And then I take her edits and I compile it into the one where I've got senior leadership, planning commission, EDAB, whoever has been providing comments. Okay.
I should finally hear.
I know,
Whoa.
it's not done. I mean, this is only like phase one. Brandy and I are talking before the meeting, still got lots of code amendments that will take us to the middle of next year. Okay,
That like reflect on this document or,
to implement,
got it.
which comes through you to council. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna add in one meeting. And I think I can also gauge after I get the complete document. I think that's what we'll do. When we send it out, I will ask Hannah to request in there, do not reply all, just email back to Hannah. What are your thoughts? Is one extra meeting gonna do it? Do we need to add 2 meetings? Cause I was realizing based on the calendar, we do have that extra Monday in September. If necessary, we can move the public hearing to that date, so it gives the planning commission a little bit more time to review.
So you're talking the potentially moving the public hearing to the 30th.
Yeah, from the 23rd to the 30th. Unless you all are,
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to add them and then cancel them, right?
okay. I just want to be respectful of your Mondays, because that's asking a lot.
We had all said we expected to have more meetings and we haven't had to yet.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. I feel like we're ahead of the game.
Melanie?
How much notice do we have to legally give for a public hearing? Cause if I'm just thinking that as soon as we know which one we're gonna solidify as the public hearing, we should probably try to at least stick to that. In terms of the other ones adding and subtracting, I mean, if we need to add them now and then we drop 1 or 2 of them down the road, that's fine. But in terms of a public hearing, if we want to commit and do it the 30th, I would say, let's state it and keep it as that. But like I said, I'm down for if we need to do pretty much every Monday, September through October. I mean, we haven't had extra meetings at all in the whole time I've been a planning commissioner so far. So we knew it was possibility. So if that's what's needed, then I'm prepared to do that. And I assume that my fellow committed planning commissioners are probably of similar opinion on that. So whatever is needed, whatever feels best for staff as well, I am flexible and on board with it.
The commitment will be for September, because after the public hearing, 2 meetings, you should not need more than 2 meetings to prepare your recommendation to council. And then they'll get another opportunity to take comment as well, so. Okay,
So Kate, what do you think of that idea though, of making the public hearing the 30th? So
yeah, I'm actually gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. That just gives me and the commission the maximum amount of time, and I will be calling Alex tomorrow morning. You gotta hit the deadline. Yeah.
And the preparing the recommendation, is that just is saying like, this is a document that we've revised. We recommend this be adopted into.
Yeah, but it's more than that, because you need to take, like, I was kind of going through some other things. Yeah, so like, at your next meeting, one of the other things I'll be going through are all of the public comments we've been receiving. Has it changed from September? So all of the pieces of information that you've been getting, that should be influencing your recommendation, the environmental analysis, the public comments, all of that will get packaged for you to consider when you make a recommendation.
And like a separate.
It'll be multiple pages. kind of highlighting why you're making this decision and how you came to it. We'll be helping, don't worry.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's extremely helpful for me.
Move on to section 7, and Brandy, you want to start the discussion and have a dedicated time set aside for Brandy time.
I was hoping, so we haven't done this yet, and I didn't do this in advance to add it as an agenda item, but, I was hoping we could have a discussion amongst the commissioners about the future land use map, the draft that, do you have any way of pulling it up, Hannah? Sorry to spring this on you, but, I know Kate says next meeting, we're gonna be discussing this in more in depth, but,
Okay, we'll have to bring it to you next meeting.
okay. So if anybody has theirs, or I think we can find them
Send it to you.
online, right? Or you can send it out, okay?
Yep.
I guess my initial thought looking at it is we only had 2 choices to begin with. They weren't that different from each other. And that is what the environmental impact stuff is, reviewed. So we're kind of limited on adding any extra things, but I just want to ensure that the land use map is representative of the comments that we've been hearing from the public at all the different forums that we've gone to, the outreach, and then also just, you know, with our own subgroups that we end up talking to. My initial thought when I'm looking at it is it's not as colorful and different than our current map, and I'm concerned that I haven't done enough to help it get more diverse based on public feedback. So I'm not sure exactly what we can do at this point about it, but if you guys next week or next meeting, I guess we're already gonna be talking about it, but those are my concerns, that it doesn't look like we're really doing a whole lot different on the map. I think we've done a lot of language changes that are really comprehensive and good, but I don't feel like the map is reflective as much of any changes, so. We had a community advisory committee meeting, like, was that a week ago, 2 weeks ago? So that's the one where there was two people from council, Jay and I, the consultants, and I brought it up then also, but it was at the very end of the meeting, so we didn't really get to have much conversation about that. And now it's going back out for a little bit more public outreach, and then we get to look at it again, so.
So a little more specifics. So are we talking housing? Are we talking commercial? Are we talking
So what I,
density? Give us your thoughts.
so what I heard a lot of people saying through our engagement stuff was they're looking for like mixed neighborhoods, like neighborhood nodes where they can find everything they need in a close proximity. So A, yes, in the whole city limits, they can find everything they need, but B, in their own subgroup of where they live, they're looking for walkability, connectivity, a park, something to do, whether it be a park or a retail space or, you know, something else that I think it might have been Melanie that I talked about, or somebody identified at one point how we have no grocery stores except for all right next to each other. So of course, we're gonna have congestion around all the grocery stores because we're forcing everyone to drive into the same spot. We didn't do anything to identify other areas that would be another satellite place to have bigger commercial areas like that, to help separate that. So people from one side of town aren't forced to all go to one place. That's an example. I guess just the only way I can describe it the best is complete neighborhood nodes. Instead of, everything's pretty segregated. We've got housing, we've got commercial, and we've got retail. And what I heard people saying, and you can also see it in some of the newer developments, not in Monroe, but throughout our county and even the state, but is that you're packaged a neighborhood into all the things that a city has into one small area. So an example would be Park Place, grocery store, market. It's got a park right there. You've got an eatery. that little block is somewhere that brings people to it, a walking distance from their homes. Yeah, there's a restaurant, the little grocery store, the park would be at the school, and identifying other areas that if it's missing a park, that it should have one added. If it's missing a retail mix, it should have that added. If it's missing the housing, it should have that added. So we realized the one really good thing our map does do is, adding housing on the north side of US two, because everybody identified that that was missing there. It's got everything else except for the housing. And then some of the other areas are still devoid of either parks or retail, dining type places, small grocery stores, that kind of mix. Does that explain it better?
Kind of, but what I was advocating for is mixed use on 154th, so I could have that corner grocery store on the bottom, residents on top, but nobody seemed to want it.
The outreach so yeah, Mig said that the outreach that they got from, I think the survey said that the people didn't like that, and so they took it away. The only place that they left it is on 179th. And I'm not really sure that that's the right fit either. I mean, on 154th or 179th, I see that there's some spaces that it would make sense, like at the intersection, some intersections where, 154th and 179th come together under the overpass there for 522, or down by the hospital, those intersections. But if we just blanket do retail or mixed use on all of 179th, it's not gonna make those neighborhood nodes. And I'm concerned that when you interject business into a neighborhood, there's other things that impact those people then. So you now have a business that's gonna leave its lights on all night long for security reasons, right? Right next to you, instead of your neighbor who had a house that just had a security light that was a normal one for a home. They have different lighting, requirements or likes for businesses, different, and it could be, it's not conditional use, so it might not be the kind of business that we were thinking that's gonna be like promenade style, where people are walking to it, and it's neighborhood friendly and things like that. So I'm just not confident that the land use map that we have come up with, Mig came up with, right off the bat, basically, and I didn't see really any changes to it, except they took 154th off of the map, for mixed use, that I don't really know if it's accurate for what people wanted.
But Megan's been working on that map. It's not just, they didn't just presto change-o, boom. I mean, it's been months. We've been having meetings for months.
But it's the same one they gave us almost right from the start. I mean, they had an outreach in person. They came up with 2 maps. And then they had 2 more outreaches. We had CAC meetings. They had the survey online. The map never changed except for removing 154th. So I don't know.
That, to me, that's not true.
Yeah,
'Cause they were interviewing people well in advance of this. I sat down with them.
Year and a half ago.
Yeah.
That will all be covered next week.
so yes, Kate's reassuring me that we're gonna be talking about this next meeting and that, but those are my concerns about the future land use map that we currently have, that I don't feel like it's quite as much of a change as I was expecting it to be and what I think other people were expecting it to be.
At the next meeting, will be a couple of them, like, side by side of things.
You will
Like, will we
see,
have visual representation of that?
yeah, you will see the current 2015 map. You will see the 2 concepts that you were given last October, council saw it in November. Then the map that basically took the most extreme for land use changes that was put into the environmental review document. And so we'll be walking you through how we got there and some additional changes because of the CAC meeting.
Is that like our only thing on the agenda, you think, or we have time for discussion on that then?
Right now, I'm trying to think. I don't think Anita is ready to come back to you with middle housing, which is a piece of this puzzle. It will be a comp plan dedicated meeting. I want to bring to you the outreach, the feedback we got from this spring's outreach with the map and the goals, the guiding principles. Oh, and Deborah Knight will be presenting the levy lid proposal, which I handed out a flyer on that. She's just gonna explain why and how and what it entails. I will send those online and the electric document of that will be on the ballot in November. So Deborah will provide you an overview of what that is. So 2 items, and I don't think hers will be very much.
Melanie?
Yes, with that levy lid lift, just as a reminder, a friendly reminder that even as planning commission during meetings, we cannot campaign for or against any of that stuff. During meetings, it has to be informational only, and obviously we can ask questions and all that, but just to kind of pre-prepare for all of that and that discussion, to be mindful of that, especially during public meetings, so.
Just the facts.
Thanks, Melanie. Always a good reminder.
Okay, so I will see if I can clear. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting for your next meeting, but I will see if I can really limit it so we can have a good conversation about the land use map. Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Get to our regular discussions by commissioners and staff. Start with Melanie, please.
Hi. So I attended National Night Out. Was it last week? I'm losing track of my days. I believe it was last week, last Tuesday. We love it every year. It's really great to see the community come together. There are tons of organizations and groups that come together to put that on every year, and it's just a great time. And at least as long as I've been here, we've had the nice summer days for it. So obviously August is usually a pretty good guarantee the weather will be good. But it's always really nice and all that. So my kids have a blast. They ask about it every year, and so that was enjoyable. And then just kind of been continuing to enjoy the summer weather in the parks in Monroe and walking around the neighborhoods and all that. So I had a question in my head earlier today, but it wasn't important enough that I remember it right this second. So if I remember it, I will email somebody or something, but that's it. Oh, I was going to say I am eternally grateful for staff and all the effort that has been put into dividing these pieces up to present to us. Obviously the consultants have done a lot of work with the city as well. But I am just continually impressed with what it looks like when it first comes to us. And obviously we've made some, formatting suggestions and language suggestions and some general edits, but I'm just grateful for all the work that has been put into this, and we are still gung-ho going for it here for the next couple months, especially, and for that end of year deadline. So just thank you to staff and everybody who's been involved in making this happen this year.
Thanks. Bob, you have an update on the ribbon cutting for the pickleball court?
Pickleball's in. They didn't appreciate when I brought pickles out. I don't know. I echo the great job by staff. I'm continually impressed by our staff. Great job. Also want to say I won't be available for a 9:20 for our meeting next 2 weeks. I will be unavailable unless it goes really late, like 10 or 11. So were we planning on having a meeting in 2 weeks? Probably, yes.
Thank you for letting us know, Bob.
Also, I noticed staff wearing branded apparel. Is there any way a commissioner could snag some of that stuff?
I will ask, I do not know what the rules are. Generally, it's specifically for city employees, but I will ask the question. I don't even think the council has any. But
Well, we
again, I'll
should,
ask.
we should have planning commission apparel. Hats and shirts and stuff.
Technically, I think the easiest way would apply at the wastewater treatment plant, or they sounded like they needed personnel in public works, do they?
I'd wear
No.
a water treatment
John.
plant shirt. I'm not opposed to that.
We'll get
They do good
PPE.
work.
Like there's a shortage of water treatment folks.
Parks of it.
Melanie, did you have another thought?
Yes, I remembered my thought from earlier. I have also I drive 154th quite frequently and passing the Blueberry Park, and it's looking amazing and I know it's ready. Is there a target date for the grand opening of that? Or has that not been decided yet?
I will reach out to Ben Swanson tomorrow and get a date for you.
Thanks. Liz?
I apologize. My dogs are barking a bunch right now. Thank you, staff, for everything. Great presentations today. I will say it was great hearing back from Public Works because I had some comments regarding some flagger concerns relating to Blueberry Lane. So it was great to actually feel heard. And I always encourage people to use that because it's an amazing resource that we do have, and I almost always get a response. So, but great presentations tonight. And Brandy, I appreciate you bringing up that topic. It helps all of us get that mindset for the next meeting too. So greatly appreciate it. And that's all I got.
Bob, did I catch you short?
I just thought of my other question. I'm doing a Melanie thing tonight. There's a play area that's been put in the Cooper Ridge development that is right behind my fence. That's not a city park, is it not? It's a developer park? HOA
That is-
park? Yeah,
That is correct. It's an HOA.
thank you.
Just wanted to echo, thank you. Especially after seeing these last documents, like everyone's doing full-time other jobs, and then this is like another maybe full-time job. So wow, so impressive, and thank you. Do we have to rerun for our spots? I know my 2 years up. What is that coming up in October?
Application process, yeah.
What do,
I do not know. I will be.
So when your term expires as a planning commissioner, you do have to reapply.
and it's 2 years, right?
Yes.
So that's,
Well, then,
we'll just move that.
So if you came in to replace another planning commissioner that was like midway through their term as a planning commissioner, you pick up where their term left off.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have to check when yours expires, unless you already know, but
I'm not
People
sure.
online are saying 4 years.
it is,
yeah.
unless you come in
Oh, and
Midway
to replace somebody that had
I
to
wouldn't know.
leave for their city council job or whatever.
You just got back on last year, didn't you?
Yeah, I applied for it. I don't control.
So I know you
We'll-
applied for
We'll have
it,
to figure
but
that out.
there's an application process, but it's a 4-year term unless you
And that
replace
person.
commissioners. So if you look on the main planning commission website, it tells you when your term expires.
Okay.
Okay.
Hannah's gonna be amazing and look it up for you.
Thank you.
Figure it out.
Don't even know where to start. And then I guess I didn't realize that we were that close to this being all wrapped up because it's December, right? And I did, you emailed me back about that answer, but I want to talk to city council about making, like trees and native foliage, bigger, priority, because I've been noticing in every single bit of the comp plan, how it will affect us long-term financially and, like for our environment. And, so I know I've had some revisions about that in this, but do I need to specifically go and talk in front of the council about having this implemented into our code, or is that like a after? Like, what is the process of really being like, I want this to be like written in so that it's not just like a afterthought, because it will help our stormwater like system, it'll help park maintenance, like having clover instead of grass. I like right now I have patchy yellow grass, but wherever there's clover, it's green, and I don't water. And so if we could have that as like, this is the code, we are using native grasses, we are, and then also for these developments to save the trees, at least of the perimeter of these developments and also for the yards, because there's gonna be a problem with runoff. Like, I was talking with my aunt, she was in a no flood zone, no, this is not in Washington. So, a neighborhood got cleared and they are now in a flood zone, and so like having these annexation areas where these developers have to keep trees, not to like veto development, but just so that we can keep these things, that we're not backpedaling in 50 years. Like, how do we make sure that this is like important? Kirkland has it in their code and it's very aggressive, but like, am I running out of time because we're doing this in a month, or like, I don't wanna miss the window on like,
Yeah,
being like,
so,
this is so important.
yeah, so there's a couple of things. So think of the comp plan as your policy document. It sets the stage for your development code. That's not to say that, if planning commission requests something and city council, because the city council at the end of the day determines what your work program is. I will tell them, oh my gosh, we have all these state requirements, here's some other things that we would like to accomplish, but they have to approve your program of work. So you are not too late unless we have not covered something in the comp plan from a policy perspective. The development code, as I was mentioning, that work is going to continue through at least June of next year. There's just not enough of me and my staff, and we do not have a consultant after the end of the year. So it will be all in-house to get that work done. That being said, there's nothing wrong with advocating at the council. I know the city from the tree retention, were you here on the planning commission when that came through last time?
We were talking about tree count at the end.
Yeah, unfortunately, it died at council, so,
And
we have
is
new
that-
state requirements that might help.
And is it asking them, like, asking them to put that into policy, or maybe I could talk to you after this about it, but like,
Yeah, I think
what do you add? What am I?
I think what, I think what, the city of Monroe does not have tree retention development standards. That's not the comp plan. That is actual implementation. So you're asking city council, I want you to make this a priority for the city to develop code to require that development cannot just clear cut a site. It needs to retain. We don't have that today.
And just referring back to the comp plan, and this is why it's important, because in every element.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
But I-
spell it out clearly, because I
Yeah.
looked at, one of our developers is building in Seattle. And so they have to hire an arborist
Mhm.
to give a detailed study of tree caliber.
Yep.
Size of the tree, type of the tree, whether it's worth retaining during the development process. If it is, they typically would have to dig that tree up, move it to a nursery site, then keep it alive during the development process, then move it back. And if it's not worth keeping, then they can remove it. But rarely will they have enough room to move them on the site and try and keep them alive. They typically, just keep it in mind, it's a very expensive process to hire a consultant to give you a detailed report on which trees are worth saving, or which trees under the city guidelines need to be saved. And then somebody's responsible for keeping them alive and then replanting them on that site if they can't be worked around during the the process of development.
I was gonna say, I have never worked with a code like that. The codes I have always worked with is you cannot develop where you have a healthy growth. And you have to keep X percentage in the trees. So I'm really interested in
Yeah. that seems
Seattle where they
excessive
let
for
you.
sure.
And
Yeah,
like, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, like
because
a
the tree's
developer
going to
just
die.
now.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the,
it doesn't, it seems like it's taking away like part of the point of like this ecosystem that's around it, this roots. I mean, I know you're putting it back, but
regardless, we have nothing right now, so, I'm happy to talk to you offline.
Okay.
The council meets every Tuesday. They always have public comment.
Should I make a motion to extend the meeting?
I guess we get a need to, sorry.
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bob, did you have something on that topic?
Yeah, I've worked in cities, worked with cities that have heritage tree ordinances. And because I've worked with telco public utilities in the area, Bellevue and Seattle specifically, you can't even trim a tree to run a cable or run down a line without a permit. And they have to have an arborist come out and inspect the tree to be sure you're not going to do damage to it. And then I've been in other areas where the heritage tree ordinance just applies to older trees and the canopy in developing area developments. I much rather prefer the other way, but that's something that's probably worth looking into.
I would thank staff for how responsive you are when like you're writing stuff down, you're gonna follow up with us and that you do that stuff and I appreciate that, so thank you. That's it.
Okay. What else do I have? Oh, we hiked Alborland and I explored parts of Alborland that I've never been in before. Even being here all along. It's a big park. Yeah. So,
Did you go along the river? There's like.
well, we were cruising along the old railroad tracks, which hadn't been. Thinking there was gonna be a bridge, an old bridge that would have been
There used to
down
be.
that crossed the river at that far east end, but it must have ended at the river always.
Well, at least we didn't have to get search and rescue out, so you did all right.
Oh, I never get lost. It's Alborland.
Yeah, there used to be a bridge across Skycomish that was demoed. Aaron Lambert, when I was here last time, worked with, cannot remember what federal agency, the support concrete was crumbling and it was, unsafe. So there used to be a trestle crossing. Bummer that it's gone.
So, yeah, lots of people enjoying the river, so that's always great to see. That's all we have. Yeah, I appreciate staff as well. Obviously, I've been on the commission a while, you guys are super, super great.
I got a couple things. Jay, I found the answer. You had a question about accessory dwelling units and it was evaluated. I think Anita brought, that looks familiar to you all, but it was part of the middle housing analysis. Included in there does have some calculations of how many additional units we think would be possible with the recent state changes, because the state did not require the city to change its lot size, lot coverage, setbacks. But if you had the area, how many additional units do we think were possible? And based on MIG's analysis, they were looking at, oh, I'm sorry, this was just the number of units. So we had less than 2,700 parcels. That doesn't mean you would actually get an ADU that had 30% lot coverage. So actually I need to get them I need to get a number for you.
Okay.
But it did include the analysis for all of the residential zones. And I'm almost positive they did give me a number. Should have looked at this clearer. Also, I just want to give you a couple of other updates. Again, the city of Monroe does not meet the population requirement for middle housing, but we are still hoping to get that adopted by the end of the year, because that is a piece of the puzzle for the city of Monroe to meet the population and housing allocations that we have been given through 2044. Amy, who was there earlier today, she is also working on the accessory dwelling unit, so we will be compliant with the state law. That one, again, is not due until June of next year, but we're hoping to bring it to you to begin the process. So it's either going to be adopted in December or in early January. The one that has not started yet is another state law change, and that was the conversion of existing buildings to residential. That work has not been started, but it also is due in June of next year. So there's a couple housing related things that are still in process. That's all I've got for you tonight. Thank you.
Anna.
All I have is that I had a great time working the community development booth at National Night Out. I saw Jay there, and besides my basset hound, Jay has the cutest dog on the planet. Yeah, it was a good time. We didn't bring our usual outreach boards because that was more of a kiddo-centric event, but I did talk to a couple of people about the comp plan update, handed out some flyers, and now we're in the tail end of our outreach work. So our final outreach event for the season is the belonging event at Skycomish River Park on September 7th. So that's coming up. That's all I have. Saturday.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyone care to move for adjournment? Oh, Melanie would like to. Awesome. Thanks, Melanie.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Okay. That was great. Thanks. 901.
So their clock's fast
Bye, everyone.
by a minute.
Hannah, can we see our